A billion-dollar war just detonated inside women's tennis, and nobody saw it coming. Three of the most powerful brands on the planet locked eyes over one athlete. A 20-year-old girl from the Philippines. And what happened next shook the entire sport to its foundation. Leaked emails, secret negotiations, a social media explosion that pulled in millions of fans overnight. And right in the center of it all, Alex Eala, a name you need to know right now. Because this story isn't just about tennis, it's about power, money, loyalty, and what happens when billion-dollar corporations treat a young woman like a product they can own. So, before we go any further, ask yourself this: if three of the biggest brands in sports came knocking on your door at the same time, all offering you life-changing money, all demanding your complete loyalty, what would you do? Because Alex Eala had to answer that question in real time, in front of the entire world. And her answer? Nobody expected it. Let's go back to where this all started. 3 years ago, Alex Eala was completely unknown outside the Philippines. She was grinding through ITF tournaments in small European towns, staying in budget hotels, barely covering travel costs, fighting for every single point. No fanbase, no endorsements, no headlines. Just a teenage girl from Manila who refused to quit. Then came the 2022 US Open Junior Championship. She won it, and everything changed. Her game was different, fearless, aggressive, built on a baseline style that older and more experienced players couldn't handle. Her ranking climbed. Then it climbed faster. By 2024 and 2025, the WTA was watching her every match. By early 2026, she cracked the top 50, and the tennis world finally asked the question everyone should have been asking years earlier: who exactly is Alex Eala? Here's the thing the brands understood before the fans did. Eala wasn't just a great tennis player. She was a marketing phenomenon waiting to happen. Southeast Asia had been starving for a tennis superstar of its own. Naomi Osaka had pulled back from the spotlight. Zheng Qinwen was already locked into massive Chinese deals. And Eala represented something entirely different: over 110 million Filipinos, who had never had a top-level tennis player to rally behind. She was young, relatable, driven, and her underdog story practically wrote its own commercial. Marketers weren't just interested, they were desperate. Nike had been with her since she was 16, on a modest, low-key agreement that kept her geared up without making any big promises. Babolat had supplied her rackets from early on, flying her to their facilities in France, investing in custom equipment, treating her less like a client and more like family. It was comfortable. It was stable. But stability doesn't build billion-dollar legacies. And that's when Wilson showed up, and they didn't come quietly. January 2026. Ayala's agent opened an email that would ignite the biggest sponsorship war women's tennis had ever seen. Wilson Tennis wanted Alex Eala as the centerpiece of their entire Asia-Pacific campaign. The offer? $8 million over 4 years. Full equipment rights. Exclusive image deals across an entire region worth billions. And the detail that nobody could ignore: a personal fund to build tennis academies across the Philippines in Ayala's name. Think about that. This wasn't just a check. This was a legacy. This was a 20-year-old girl being handed the chance to reshape youth sport in her home country forever. But Wilson had one condition, and it was non-negotiable: complete exclusivity. Eala would have to drop Babolat immediately. No transition period, no overlap, no compromise. Wilson or nothing. Her agent knew this would be brutal. Babolat hadn't just handed her a contract, they had believed in her when nobody else did. When she was ranked outside the top 200. When she was just another junior player with potential but no proof. You don't just walk away from that without consequences. But $8 million has a way of making hard conversations unavoidable. And then Babolat found out. Within 48 hours, their executives were on a call, voices tense, making their position crystal clear. We supported you from the beginning. We built rackets specifically for you. We flew you across the world. We treated you like one of our own. Walk away to Wilson, and you're not just leaving a brand, you're abandoning everything we built together. But they also came with a counter. $6 million over 3 years, plus equity in Babolat's upcoming Asian market expansion. Not as much cash as Wilson. But something Wilson couldn't offer: the weight of genuine loyalty and the promise that she would be the singular face of their entire regional growth strategy. Eala was already processing two competing futures when Nike entered the room and completely changed the conversation. Nike had been watching quietly, convinced their existing relationship with Eala made them safe. They were wrong. The moment they realized both Wilson and Babolat were fighting over their athlete, they stopped playing it cool and started playing to win. What Nike put on the table wasn't just a sponsorship, it was a transformation. Lifetime royalties on signature apparel lines, co-branded sneaker collections, direct partnerships with the biggest names in global sport, Serena Williams, Rafael Nadal, LeBron James. Nike wasn't offering Eala a tennis deal. They were offering her a seat at the table with the most iconic athletes alive. The total value? Reportedly $12 million over 5 years, the largest endorsement package ever offered to a Filipino athlete in history. But here's the twist that made everything more complicated. Nike didn't want her racket rights. They wanted her image, her lifestyle, her cultural impact. If she signed with Wilson for equipment, Nike was still in. But if she chose Babolat, Nike would walk. So now the equation looked like this: Wilson plus Nike together, or Babolat alone with less money and less global reach. 3 brands. Billions of dollars. One impossible choice. And then someone started talking. February 4, 2026. A Tennis Insider account posted a screenshot on Twitter, and the entire negotiation exploded into public view. The image showed Wilson's offer, every single line item, the signing bonus, the annual retainer, performance clauses, image rights, academy funding, all of it. Within 1 hour it had 50,000 retweets. Within 3 hours, Babolat's counter had leaked too. Then Nike's package. The most confidential negotiation in recent tennis history was now open-source content for the entire internet. Fans dissected every number. Analysts ranked every offer. Journalists wrote think pieces. And Alex Eala, the person whose entire future was being debated publicly, said absolutely nothing. But the silence didn't last long, because the internet doesn't wait. The Filipino community erupted with pride first, then pressure. Some fans demanded she choose Wilson for the academies. Others insisted Nike was the only logical path for global visibility. Babolat supporters circulated old interviews where Eala had praised the brand for believing in her early, building a case that leaving them was a betrayal of her own words. The brands poured fuel on the fire. Wilson posted a video of Filipino children playing tennis on cracked concrete courts with the caption, "Imagine what's possible." Emotional, strategic, ruthless. Babolat responded with footage of engineers handcrafting her rackets, framed as a love letter to loyalty. Nike said nothing. They didn't need to. Naomi Osaka retweeted a photo of herself and Eala side by side at a Nike event, one word in the caption, "family." And then the most damaging leak yet. Internal Babolat messages surfaced, showing executives discussing replacement options. If Eala left, other Filipino players they could pivot to before she even made her decision. The brand that had positioned itself as her loyal family had already started planning without her. The backlash was instant. The internet turned on Babolat overnight. And somewhere in Manila, a 20-year-old girl was reading all of it. February 9th. Nearly midnight. Alex Eala opened Instagram and typed something no PR team approved, no lawyer reviewed, no brand consultant signed off on. She wrote it herself. She said she had been quiet because she didn't know what to say. She talked about drowning in legal documents and pressure from every direction at an age when she should be focused entirely on her ranking and her game. She acknowledged every offer honestly: Wilson's legacy potential, Babolat's loyalty, Nike's global platform, and admitted she didn't have a clean answer for any of it. She didn't know if accepting Wilson meant owing them her entire future. She didn't know if loyalty to Babolat meant ignoring better opportunities. She didn't know if choosing Nike meant selling out. Then she said something that stopped the entire conversation cold. She hadn't leaked those emails. She hadn't asked for this to become public. She hadn't invited the world into her most difficult professional decision. And she was tired of being told she already had to have the answer. 1 million likes in under an hour. The brands went completely silent. Wilson deleted their emotional campaign video. Babolat pulled their loyalty content. Nike's athletes stopped posting. Because everyone suddenly understood they had crossed a line. This wasn't a bidding war anymore. This was someone's life. February 12, 2026. No press conference, no dramatic announcement. just a quiet statement from her management. Alex Eala had signed with Nike for apparel and global rights. She had signed with Wilson for equipment and the academy commitment. And Babolat received a private settlement along with a personal public thank you from Eala herself. The internet exploded again, but differently this time. Nike supporters called it the smartest decision of her career. Babolat fans called it a betrayal. Wilson fans started counting down to the academy groundbreaking in Quezon City, scheduled for June 2026. But the most powerful reactions came from the players. Serena Williams posting pride, Naomi Osaka talking about strength, WTA players across the board defending Ayala's right to choose her own future without the world guilt-tripping her into a specific answer. Nike dropped a campaign video the same week. Sleek, cinematic. Eala training in Manila. The skyline behind her. Wilson racket in hand. Nike gear on. The chaos of the past 2 weeks completely invisible. Wilson announced the first academy location and positioned Eala not as a sponsored player, but as a co-founder. Babolat issued a graceful farewell statement, no bitterness, no drama, and walked away with their dignity intact. But here is the question that matters most, and the one the WTA still hasn't answered. What does this moment actually mean? Because this wasn't a normal sponsorship story. This was a case study in how billion-dollar brands manipulate young athletes, how leaked information becomes a weapon, how fan loyalty can become fan pressure, and how social media turns private decisions into public trials. Alex Eala didn't just pick sponsors. She survived a coordinated assault on her autonomy and came out the other side with her voice intact. She proved that young athletes can define their own narratives even when 3 corporate giants are actively trying to define it for them. She proved that you can make a complex decision, one that doesn't perfectly satisfy every party, and still hold your head up walking away from it. But she also exposed something ugly that the sport can't pretend didn't happen. The leaks were strategic. The campaigns were manipulative. The pressure was manufactured. And a 20-year-old girl had to absorb all of it publicly while trying to make the most important business decision of her young career. The WTA didn't step in. No rules were technically broken. But everyone in every locker room in every tournament city on the tour knows what happened here. And every young athlete watching this story knows it too. The next time brands circle a rising star, they will remember Alex Eala. They will remember how fast a private negotiation can become a public spectacle. They will remember what happens when corporations forget that athletes are human beings, not inventory. And maybe, if the sport is lucky, they will also remember how Eala handled it. With patience. With honesty. With complete refusal to be rushed into a decision she wasn't ready to make just because the internet demanded one. She is back on court now. Competing. Climbing. Focused on the only thing that ever mattered, winning matches, and building a career that belongs entirely to her. But the question she left behind echoes through every corner of professional tennis. Was this just a brand rivalry that got out of control? Or was this the moment athletes finally proved they hold more power than the companies trying to own them? Alex Eala didn't just win a sponsorship war. She changed the rules of the game entirely.